The ash-gray sky stretched endlessly above Jace as he trudged through the skeletal remains of what had once been a thriving metropolis. Wind whistled through hollow buildings, carrying the fine dust that had become as common as air since the Green-Red War. His respirator filter wheezed with each breath, a reminder that it needed replacing soon. Not that filters were easy to find these days. Jace adjusted the straps of his scavenging pack, the worn leather creaking against his weather-beaten jacket. 3 years of solitary survival had hardened him into something barely recognizable as human, more a creature of instinct and necessity than a man with dreams or connections. The remnants of Sector 17 stretched before him, a graveyard of twisted metal and crumbling concrete. Once, it had been the technological heart of the United Earth government. Now, it was just another hunting ground for scavengers like him. Jace checked his radiation counter, elevated but manageable. He had maybe 4 hours before he'd need to seek shelter. His hand dropped to the holstered pulse pistol at his hip, a reflex born from too many close encounters with other desperate survivors. Trust was a luxury no one could afford anymore. The static crackle of his modified radio broke the silence. Jace frowned. The airwaves had been dead for months, save for the occasional automated warning beacon. He was about to switch it off when a sound froze him mid-step. A child's voice, weak and trembling, pushed through the static. Is anyone there? Please. We need help. Please take me and Mama, human. Jace's finger hovered over the radio's power switch. The voice was coming from deeper in the ruins, from Zone Red 7, an area he deliberately avoided due to its proximity to the old government research facility. The radiation levels there were unpredictable, and rumors spoke of automated defense systems still active, hunting intruders. Please, the voice came again, fainter this time. We're trapped, under the tall building with the broken star. Mama's hurt. Something in the child's voice, its desperate hope, its innocent trust that someone might still care enough to help, pierced through the protective shell Jace had built around himself. Damn it, he muttered, adjusting his heading toward the ominous silhouette of Zone Red 7. The broken star would be the old Federal Communications Tower. It was at least 2 hours away, and heading there meant he'd be caught in the open when night fell. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, to retreat to his bunker, where he had enough supplies to last another month. Survival meant making hard choices. It meant putting yourself first because no one else would. Yet he kept walking toward the voice. The sky darkened as Jace approached the border of Zone Red 7. The landscape grew more alien with each step, buildings warped by intense heat, glass melted into grotesque sculptures, and strange crimson moss growing in patches where rain had collected. His Geiger counter clicked more rapidly, forcing him to reroute several times. The dust was thicker here, tinged with a reddish hue that gave the zone its name. Within an hour, visibility dropped to less than 50 meters as the winds picked up, heralding the approach of one of the dust storms that had become common after the war. The fine particles would find their way into every crevice, every seal, and the ones in this zone carried traces of the biological agents used during the final days of the conflict. Jace pulled his scarf tighter around his neck and donned his protective goggles. The storm was coming faster than expected. He'd have maybe an hour before it hit in full force. The communications tower loomed ahead, its broken star emblem hanging precariously from a single support beam. Once a symbol of Earth's unified government, now it resembled a crooked headstone, marking humanity's grave. "Hello?" Jace called out, his voice muffled by his respirator. "I heard your transmission. Where are you?" Silence answered him. The radio at his belt had gone quiet. Either the child had stopped broadcasting, or worse, help had come too late. Jace circled the base of the tower, scanning the rubble for any sign of life. The foundation had partially collapsed, creating a cavernous space beneath what remained of the lobby. He switched on his shoulder lamp and peered into the darkness. "Is anyone down there?" A small sound echoed from below. Not a voice, but the scrape of metal against concrete. Jace drew his pistol and cautiously began descending into the rubble. The air grew thicker with dust and the sweet metallic scent that always lingered in places where many had died. His lamp cut through the darkness, revealing an office space crushed beneath the weight of the floors above. Desks had been flattened, chairs reduced to splinters, and everywhere, the red-tinged dust had settled like a shroud. Movement flickered at the edge of his light. Jace swung the beam toward it, revealing a small hand retracting into the shadows. "It's okay," he said, lowering his weapon but not holstering it. "I heard your call for help." Slowly, a face emerged from behind a fallen support beam. A girl, no more than 8 years old, with wide eyes that reflected his lamplight. Her skin was pale beneath the dust that coated it, and her dark hair hung in matted tangles around her face. A crude breathing mask fashioned from fabric covered her nose and mouth. "You came," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You really came." Jace nodded, approaching slowly. "Where's your mother?" The girl pointed toward a partially collapsed wall. "There. The ceiling fell. I couldn't move it." Behind the wall, Jace found a woman pinned beneath a concrete slab. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes closed, but she was alive. A makeshift bandage wrapped around her forehead was soaked with dried blood. "How long have you been trapped here?" Jace asked the girl as he assessed the situation. "3 days, I think," she replied. "The radio only started working yesterday. Mama showed me how to use it before she—" Her voice trailed off. Jace examined the concrete slab. It was heavy, but not impossible to move with leverage. He found a metal rod among the debris and wedged it beneath the edge. "What's your name?" he asked, partly to keep the girl calm, partly to distract himself from the growing wail of the approaching storm. "Luma," she replied, "and Mama is Alara." "I'm Jace." He braced himself against the rod. "Luma, when I lift this, I need you to help pull your mother out. Okay? Can you do that?" The girl nodded, her small hands already reaching for her mother's shoulders. "On 3, 1, 2, 3. Jace pushed down on the rod with all his strength. The concrete slab lifted just enough for Luma to help drag her mother free. Alara's leg was badly injured, possibly broken, and she remained unconscious. Worse, Jace's Geiger counter was now chattering urgently. They needed shelter, and soon. "The storm's coming," he told Luma, slinging her mother over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. "We need to find somewhere to wait it out." "What about the basement?" Luma pointed to a stairwell half hidden by debris. "That's where we were going when everything fell." The basement level was relatively intact, its reinforced walls designed to protect the building's server infrastructure. Jace cleared a space in the corner, furthest from the entrance, and gently laid Alara down. He removed his pack and extracted a medical kit while Luma hovered anxiously nearby. "Is Mama going to die?" she asked bluntly, with the terrible directness only children possess. Jace assessed Alara's injuries by lamplight. The head wound was superficial. Scalp injuries always bled dramatically. Her breathing was steady, if shallow. The leg was definitely broken, but there was no compound fracture. Dehydration was the most immediate concern. "Not if I can help it," he replied, uncapping his canteen. He lifted Alara's head and drizzled water between her lips. "Help me clean her wounds." As they worked, the storm hit in full force above them. Even through meters of concrete, they could hear its fury, a banshee wail that had swallowed the cries of countless souls caught in its path over the years. "How did you end up here?" Jace asked, as he splinted Alara's leg with pieces of debris and strips torn from his spare shirt. Luma's eyes darted away. "We were hiding from the drones." Jace's hands paused. "What drones?" "The ones that chase us. They have red lights and they make a buzzing sound. Mama says they're looking for the key." "What key?" Luma shook her head. "I don't know. Mama never told me. She just said we have to keep moving until we find the safe people. Jace frowned. Military drones were supposedly deactivated after the peace accord. If active hunter drones were pursuing civilians, it meant someone was violating the fragile truce that had ended the war. A low moan interrupted his thoughts. Alara was regaining consciousness, her eyelids fluttering. "Luma," she called weakly. "I'm here, Mama." The girl clutched her mother's hand. "A human came to help us, just like you said someone would." Alara's eyes opened fully, focusing on Jace with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. "Thank you," she whispered hoarsely. "Save your strength," Jace replied, offering her water. "You're safe for now, but we can't stay here long. The radiation levels are climbing, and that storm won't pass until morning." "The facility," Alara managed, wincing as she tried to sit up. "We need to reach the research facility." "That's suicide," Jace said flatly. "The defense systems are still active." A weak smile crossed Alara's face. "Not for me." Before Jace could question her further, a mechanical whirring sound penetrated even the howl of the storm. His blood ran cold. He recognized that sound from the war. Scout drones. "They found us," Luma whispered, fear tightening her voice. Jace extinguished his lamp immediately, plunging them into darkness. "Don't move," he breathed. "Don't make a sound." The whirring grew louder, accompanied by the rhythmic sweep of a scanning beam passing over the rubble above. Red light filtered down through cracks in the ceiling, painting crimson stripes across their hiding place. Jace's mind raced. The basement offered temporary shelter from the storm, but it was a trap if the drones detected them. With Alara injured, their options for escape were limited. The scanning beam lingered over one section of ceiling longer than the others. Dust and small fragments rained down as something began cutting through the concrete. "They're coming through," Jace whispered, drawing his pulse pistol. "Is there another way out?" Alara pointed weakly toward the back of the basement. "Server cooling ducts. Too small for adults, but Luma." Jace understood immediately. "Luma, I need you to be very brave. There's an air duct system back there that should lead outside the building's perimeter. I want you to follow it and hide until the storm passes." "I'm not leaving Mama," the girl protested. "Your mother and I will find another way," Jace lied smoothly. "But if they capture all of us, no one will be left to find help. You need to be our runner." Alara reached up to touch her daughter's face. "Go, little star. Remember what I taught you. Find the green tower." Tears welled in Luma's eyes, but she nodded. Jace helped her locate the duct entrance and pried off the rusted grate. The opening was barely large enough for the girl's narrow shoulders. "Wait until morning," Jace instructed her. "Then head east, away from the sun. Look for the bunkers with the circle marking. Tell them Jace sent you." As Luma disappeared into the duct, Jace turned back to Alara. "Now, tell me what the hell is going on and why military drones are hunting a mother and child." "Not just any drones," Alara replied, her voice stronger now, despite her injuries. "Black operative units. Officially, they don't exist." She reached into her jacket and withdrew a small pendant on a chain. "And they want this." The pendant was unremarkable, a simple metal disc with an embedded data chip. "That's it? That's the key?" Jace asked incredulously. "This contains evidence of what really happened during the final days of the war. Proof that the peace accord was built on a foundation of lies." Alara's eyes burned with intensity, despite her weakened state. "It proves that the alien delegation never betrayed humanity. They were framed by our own government." The cutting sound above grew louder. They had minutes at most. "Why should I believe you?" Jace demanded. Alara pressed the pendant into his hand. "Because my husband gave his life to secure this data. Captain Ree Kellen. Perhaps you've heard of him." Jace felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. Captain Kellen had been his commanding officer during the war, a man who'd saved Jace's life multiple times, and who had mysteriously disappeared days before the alien delegation was accused of biological sabotage. Kellen is dead, Jace said flatly. He was branded a traitor. He was a hero, Alara countered fiercely. And they killed him because he discovered the truth. The biological agents released against our own people. It wasn't the aliens. It was a black ops division called Prometheus. A section of ceiling collapsed nearby, showering them with debris. The mechanical whir of drone propellers filled the basement as a scanning beam swept toward them. "We need to move," Jace said, helping Alara to her feet. She cried out in pain as her broken leg took weight, but bit down on the sound. "The pendant," she gasped. "If they capture us, destroy it. Better lost than in their hands." Jace pocketed the pendant and supported Alara as they staggered toward the back of the basement. The drones were designed for scanning and pursuit, not for close-quarters combat in confined spaces. If they could reach the maintenance tunnels that inevitably ran beneath a building of this size, they might evade detection long enough for the storm to cover their escape. They found a service door, rusted but intact. Jace forced it open, just as the first drone spotted them, its alarm piercing the air as it fired a warning shot that scorched the wall, inches from Jace's head. They stumbled through the door, and Jace slammed it shut behind them, jamming his knife through the handle to buy precious seconds. The passageway beyond was pitch black and smelled of mold and stagnant water. "Can you walk at all?" Jace asked Alara. "With help," she grimaced, "but not quickly." "Then we don't walk." Jace lifted her onto his back. "Hold on tight and try not to scream." He activated his night vision attachment and began moving as quickly as he dared through the flooded maintenance tunnel. Behind them, the service door burst open as the drones forced their way through. The tunnel branched repeatedly, forming a labyrinth beneath the ruined city. Jace chose his path instinctively, always moving away from the drone's scanning patterns. His military training from the war returned in full force, the same skills that had kept him alive when his unit was ambushed in the alien district of New Singapore. After what felt like hours of navigating the claustrophobic passages, the mechanical sounds of pursuit faded. Either they had lost the drones, or more likely, the storm's interference was disrupting their tracking capabilities. Jace found a maintenance junction, a small room with access panels for the building's long-dead systems. He gently lowered Alara onto the driest patch of floor and collapsed beside her, his muscles burning from the exertion. "How's the leg?" he asked between labored breaths. "Painful," she admitted, "but I'll live. Thank you for saving us." Jace shook his head. "Don't thank me yet. We're still in Zone Red 7, with a storm above us, hunter drones searching for us, and your daughter crawling through air ducts to who knows where." "Luma knows where to go," Alara said with quiet confidence. "She's smarter than most adults I know." "She's your daughter with Kellen," Jace stated, rather than asked. Now that he knew to look, he could see the resemblance. Luma had her father's determined jaw and analytical eyes. Alara nodded. "Ree never knew about her. I was 3 months pregnant when he left for his final mission." Her voice caught. "He never came home." Jace reached into his pocket and withdrew the pendant. "Tell me about this. What exactly does it contain that's worth hunting a child for?" Project Prometheus was created as a failsafe in case the peace negotiations with the Proxima delegation failed. Alara explained. "A biological weapon designed to target specific DNA markers found only in their species. But some high-ranking officials decided humanity would be better off without alien influence altogether. They released the weapon during the delegation's goodwill visit to New Singapore, knowing it would be blamed on the aliens. But it affected humans too," Jace pointed out. "Thousands died in the initial exposure. An acceptable loss, according to the documents rediscovered. They knew there would be human casualties, but the weapon was engineered to have a higher mortality rate among Proxima physiology. When the aliens were blamed for the attack, it gave Earth's military the justification they needed to launch a full-scale war." Jace's mind reeled with the implications. The war had devastated both civilizations, leaving Earth a toxic wasteland and forcing the Proxima survivors to retreat to their colony on Mars. The peace that followed was fragile at best, built on mutual exhaustion rather than trust. And your husband discovered this? Ree found the original deployment orders, Alara confirmed. Signed by General Harker himself. When he tried to bring the evidence to the Oversight Committee, Prometheus agents intercepted him. He managed to encrypt the data and send it to me before they... She couldn't finish the sentence. And you've been running ever since, Jace concluded. For 8 years, Alara said. Luma has never known a normal life. We've moved from one safe house to another, always one step ahead of them, until 3 days ago, when they finally caught up to us here. Jace examined the pendant more closely. What good is this information now? The war is over. Both sides suffered losses that will take generations to recover from. The truth always matters, Alara said fiercely. And, more practically, the same people who orchestrated the attack are now in control of the reconstruction effort. They're building a new world order based on fear and isolation. If the Proxima delegation knew they were framed, they might return, Jace finished. With their technology, Earth's recovery would be accelerated by decades. Exactly. The pendant contains coordinates to a hidden satellite uplink facility. From there, we can broadcast the evidence to both Earth and Mars simultaneously. No government censorship, no controlled narrative. A distant explosion shook dust from the ceiling. The drones were still searching, methodically destroying sections of the tunnel network. We need to keep moving, Jace said, helping Alara to her feet. Where is this facility? The old Quantum Research Center, about 5 kilometers north of here. She winced as she put weight on her injured leg. It's where Ree and I met. He was military liaison to the science division, and I was leading the xenobiology team studying Proxima physiology. Dr. Alara Kellen, Jace said as recognition dawned. You wrote the protocols for human-alien medical treatment during the early diplomatic phase. A sad smile crossed her face. Another lifetime ago. They continued through the tunnels, moving more slowly now as Alara's strength waned. Jace found himself supporting more of her weight with each passing hour. Above them, the storm's fury began to diminish, which meant the drones would soon regain full tracking capabilities. Tell me about Luma, Jace said, partly to keep Alara conscious, and partly because he genuinely wanted to know about Kellen's daughter. She's extraordinary, Alara said, pride momentarily overcoming her pain. Taught herself to read at 4, memorized the emergency protocols for every safe house we've stayed in. And brave, so brave. She's never complained about our life on the run, even when we've gone days without proper food or shelter. She'll make it, Jace assured her. Kids are resilient. She's all I have left of Ree, Alara whispered. If anything happens to her... It won't, Jace promised, though he had no right to make such guarantees. They reached a junction where the maintenance tunnel connected to a larger storm drainage system. Jace helped Alara climb down the rusted ladder, taking care not to jostle her injured leg. The storm drain was wide enough for them to stand upright, and the flow of water was minimal. Just a trickle of reddish liquid that Jace suspected was more chemical than rainwater. We should be able to follow this all the way to the research center, Alara said, consulting a small compass she wore on her wrist. It's part of the same municipal system. Jace nodded, but something was bothering him. The drones. Why haven't they just terminated you? Why the elaborate chase? Alara's expression darkened. Because they need to know who else has seen the data. Prometheus operates in absolute secrecy. The mere possibility that their existence might be exposed is unacceptable to them. And the key you mentioned to Luma? A simplified explanation. The pendant itself is merely a storage device. The true key is biological, a genetic lock keyed to Ree's DNA, or, by extension, to his daughter's. Understanding dawned on Jace. They need Luma. Yes. The satellite facility will only accept commands from someone with Kellen genetic markers. It was Ree's failsafe. He knew if anything happened to him, I would protect Luma, and eventually, we would find a way to release the truth. Jace felt a chill that had nothing to do with the damp tunnel. So those drones aren't just hunting you. They're hunting her specifically. Why do you think I sent her away? Alara said softly. Better she escape alone than be captured with us. The storm drain stretched before them, a straight shot through the darkness. Jace checked his night vision attachment. The battery indicator was blinking red. They had maybe an hour before they'd be navigating blind. We need to move faster, he said, lifting Alara again despite his protesting muscles. If those drones realize Luma is the key, they'll focus their search on her instead of us. They pushed on through the darkness. The only sounds their labored breathing and the splash of Jace's boots in the shallow water. His mind raced with contingency plans, escape routes, defensive positions, falling back on his military training to impose order on a chaotic situation. After what seemed like hours, a faint glow appeared ahead, natural light filtering down through a grate in the ceiling of the storm drain. Jace paused beneath it, allowing Alara to rest while he assessed their position. Through the grate, he could see a portion of sky. The storm had passed, leaving behind the usual ashen gray clouds tinged with red. They had traveled farther than he expected, as the silhouette of the Quantum Research Center was visible in the distance, its distinctive dome partially collapsed, but still recognizable. We're close, he told Alara. Maybe half a kilometer more. She nodded weakly. The journey had taken its toll. Her skin was pale and clammy, her breathing shallow. The makeshift splint on her leg was soaked through, and Jace suspected infection was setting in. I can make it, she insisted, reading the concern on his face. Jace wasn't so sure, but they had no choice but to continue. He helped her back to her feet, and they resumed their journey, moving more cautiously now that they were approaching their destination. The storm drain widened as it approached the research center, designed to handle the runoff from the facility's extensive grounds. Eventually, they reached a maintenance access point, a ladder leading up to what should be the southeastern corner of the complex. Wait here, Jace instructed, propping Alara against the wall. I'll check if it's clear. He climbed the ladder and carefully pushed open the access hatch. The complex's perimeter fence was visible about 50 meters away, with the main buildings beyond. No drones were immediately visible, but that didn't mean they weren't present. Jace was about to descend when movement caught his eye, a small figure darting between pieces of rubble, heading toward the research center. Luma. The girl had somehow navigated her way here independently, exactly as her mother had trusted she would. Jace watched in amazement as she approached the perimeter fence, examined it briefly, then squeezed through a gap that would have been too small for an adult. He descended quickly to Alara. Your daughter is here, he reported. She's already inside the perimeter fence. Hope and fear warred on Alara's face. She's following the protocol. We always identified research facilities as potential safe zones due to their independent power systems. Smart kid, Jace admitted. But she's exposed up there. We need to reach her before the drones do. With renewed urgency, he helped Alara up the ladder. The effort left her gasping in pain, but she didn't complain. Once on the surface, they took cover behind a toppled wall, surveying the open ground they would need to cross. The research center had once been a showcase of human ingenuity, a sprawling complex of laboratories, testing facilities, and residential buildings where scientists had worked to understand the alien biology of their Proxima visitors. Now, it stood as a monument to humanity's failure, its gleaming surfaces dulled by years of toxic dust, its windows shattered, its gardens dead. The satellite uplink is in the central dome, Alara explained, pointing to the partially collapsed structure. The equipment is in a hardened bunker beneath the primary research floor. If it survived the war, it should still be functional. Jace nodded, formulating a plan. The most direct route would be exposed for too long. We'll circle around through those administrative buildings, using them as cover. They moved as quickly as Alara's condition allowed, darting from one piece of cover to the next. Twice they froze as drone shadows passed overhead. But the machines seemed to be conducting a standard search pattern, rather than responding to specific intelligence. As they approached the main research building, Jace spotted Luma again. She had reached the entrance and was attempting to force open a door that had been partially blocked by debris. "She needs help," Alara whispered anxiously. Jace assessed the distance. About 30 meters of open ground separated them from the building entrance. It was a risky crossing, but they had little choice. "Stay low and move as fast as you can," he instructed Alara. "I'll go first and create a distraction if necessary." He darted across the open space, his eyes constantly scanning for drones. The seconds stretched endlessly until he finally reached the building and pressed himself against the wall beside the entrance. Luma startled at his appearance, then recognized him. "You're alive!" she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of relief and suspicion. "Where's Mama?" "Coming," Jace replied, turning to signal Alara. She emerged from cover, moving with determination despite her injury. She had covered perhaps half the distance when the distinctive whir of drone propellers cut through the air. "Drone!" Jace shouted, drawing his pulse pistol. "Luma, get inside!" The girl had already wedged the door open enough for her small frame to squeeze through. She hesitated, looking back at her mother, struggling across the open ground. "Go!" Jace ordered, taking aim at the approaching drone. He fired twice, missing both times as the machine executed evasive maneuvers. Its red scanning beam locked onto Alara, and an alarm began to sound. Jace abandoned his position by the door and sprinted toward Alara. The drone fired, the shot striking the ground just behind her. The impact threw her forward, and she cried out as she landed on her injured leg. Reaching her side, Jace fired again at the drone. This time, his shot connected, sending the machine spiraling into a nearby wall where it exploded in a shower of sparks. "More will come," he warned, helping Alara to her feet. "That alarm is a beacon." They stumbled the remaining distance to the entrance where Luma waited, her eyes wide with fear. Together, they squeezed through the partially blocked doorway into the research center's main atrium. The interior was a stark contrast to the devastation outside. Though dust covered every surface and furniture had been toppled, the structure itself was largely intact. Emergency lighting glowed dimly along the floors, powered by the facility's independent generators. "This way," Alara directed, pointing toward a central corridor. "The access to the lower levels is through the main laboratory." They followed her directions, moving deeper into the complex. Jace kept his weapon ready, expecting resistance at any moment. The facility's automated systems might still be active, and there was no guarantee they were the only ones who had sought shelter here after the war. The main laboratory was a vast space filled with equipment Jace couldn't begin to identify. Workstations with multiple monitors lined the walls, and in the center stood several large containment units, presumably once used to study alien biological samples. Alara led them to an inconspicuous door at the back of the lab. A handprint scanner beside it still glowed with power. "This is it," she said, placing her palm against the scanner. After a moment, the light turned red, and a computerized voice announced, "Access denied. Genetic verification required." Alara turned to her daughter. "Luma, remember what I told you about your father's special door? This is it. Put your hand on the scanner, just like we practiced." Luma approached the scanner hesitantly. "Will it hurt?" "No, little star. It just needs to know you're your father's daughter." The girl placed her small hand on the scanner. This time, the light turned green, and the voice announced, "Kellen genetic markers confirmed. Welcome, authorized personnel." The door slid open to reveal an elevator. As they stepped inside, a distant explosion rocked the building. "They've breached the perimeter," Jace said grimly. "We don't have much time." The elevator descended rapidly, taking them deep beneath the research facility. When the doors opened, they found themselves in a bunker-like room filled with communications equipment. Unlike the abandoned laboratory above, this space hummed with active systems, lights blinking on various consoles. "The independent power system is still functioning," Alara observed with relief. She limped to the central console and began activating sequences. Screens flickered to life, displaying system diagnostics and satellite positioning data. "What exactly are we doing here?" Jace asked, keeping his attention divided between the elevator they had arrived in and a second set of doors at the far end of the room. "This facility houses a dedicated quantum encrypted communication array," Alara explained as she worked. "It was designed to maintain contact with the Proxima homeworld, regardless of conventional interference. During the war, both sides jammed or destroyed standard communication channels. But this system remained operational because only a handful of people knew of its existence." She inserted the pendant into a slot on the console. The screen immediately requested a verification code, which she entered from memory. "The system is preparing to broadcast," she announced. "It will simultaneously transmit to all remaining Earth government frequencies and to the Proxima colony on Mars. The message includes all the evidence regathered, deployment orders, laboratory records, even video testimony from scientists who were coerced into developing the bioweapon." Luma stood beside her mother, watching the screens with fascination. "Will this make the bad people stop chasing us?" Alara stroked her daughter's hair. "I hope so, little star. Once the truth is known, they'll have nowhere to hide." A progress bar appeared on the main screen, showing the broadcast preparation at 67% complete. Jace checked his ammunition, 3 shots remaining in the pulse pistol. Not nearly enough if a full drone squad breached the bunker. "How long will this take?" he asked. 4 minutes to completion," Alara replied. "Then another 2 minutes for the actual broadcast. After that, it can't be stopped. The data will be propagating through both human and Proxima communication networks." The elevator indicator above the doors began to move, showing descent from the surface. "Company's coming," Jace warned, taking up a defensive position. "Luma, get behind that equipment rack. Alara, keep working." The elevator arrived with a soft chime. As the doors slid open, Jace fired without hesitation. The shot struck the first drone, destroying it instantly, but 2 more pushed forward, their weapons powering up. Jace dove behind a console as energy blasts scorched the spot where he had been standing. He rolled to a new position and fired again, disabling the second drone. The third drone advanced into the room, its scanning beam sweeping methodically across the equipment. When it located Alara at the main console, it fired a precision shot that struck her in the shoulder. She cried out and fell, clutching the wound. "Mama!" Luma screamed, rushing from her hiding place. The drone swiveled toward the sound, its targeting system locking onto the girl. Before it could fire, Jace lunged from cover and tackled the machine. They crashed to the floor together, the drone's propellers slicing into his arm as he struggled to maintain his grip. With his free hand, Jace jammed his pistol against what he hoped was a critical component and fired his last shot. The drone shuddered and went still, its lights fading. "Alara!" Jace crawled to where she had fallen. The energy blast had cauterized the wound, but she was losing consciousness from the shock. "The broadcast," she gasped, pointing weakly at the console. 92%. Just needs final authorization." Luma was already at the console, standing on tiptoes to reach the controls. "What do I do, Mama?" "Green button. Then enter the code. 4719, your birthday." Jace helped Alara to a sitting position as Luma followed her instructions. The screen changed, showing a final confirmation prompt. "Press execute," Alara directed, her voice fading. Then the red switch. Physical override. Luma did as instructed. The room's lights dimmed momentarily as power was diverted to the transmission array. On the screen, a message appeared. Broadcast initiated. Global distribution in progress. A deep humming filled the bunker as the hidden satellite uplink activated. Somewhere above them, concealed transmitters were sending Kellen's evidence to every functioning communication system on Earth and Mars. "We did it," Alara whispered, a smile spreading across her pale face. We did it." The second set of doors at the far end of the room suddenly slid open. Jace tensed, ready for another fight despite having no ammunition left. Instead, a group of figures entered wearing the distinctive environmental suits of the Proxima species, humanoid, but taller, with elongated limbs and features obscured by their protective gear. "Do not be alarmed," the foremost figure announced in accented but clear English. "We have been monitoring this facility since the war ended. When the quantum channel activated, we knew someone had finally reached it." Jace positioned himself protectively in front of Alara and Luma. "Who are you?" "I am Sentinel Tavek of the Proxima Reconciliation Force," the alien replied. "We maintained a small presence on Earth despite the official withdrawal, hoping that someday the truth would emerge." More figures appeared behind the aliens, humans wearing the insignia of the resistance movement that had formed during the later stages of the war. "The broadcast is already having an effect," one of the humans reported, checking a portable communications device. "Military units across 3 continents are standing down. Prometheus control centers are being seized by loyalist forces." Sentinel Tavek approached Alara, medical scanner in hand. "You require immediate treatment," the alien observed. "Our medical facility is operational." Alara managed a weak nod. "My daughter." "Will remain with you," Tavek assured her. "Your family has done a great service to both our peoples today. Captain Kellen's sacrifice will not be forgotten." As the aliens prepared to transport Alara, Luma turned to Jace. "Are you coming with us?" Jace hesitated. For 3 years, he had survived by avoiding attachments, by trusting no one. The thought of rejoining society, especially one in the midst of such dramatic upheaval, filled him with apprehension. Yet, something had changed in him since hearing that small voice on his radio. Perhaps it was remembering what it felt like to fight for something beyond mere survival. Perhaps it was the echo of Captain Kellen's influence, reminding him of the man he had once aspired to be. "Yes," he said finally. "I'm coming." The days that followed passed in a blur of activity. The Proxima medical team stabilized Alara, while the joint human-alien force secured the research facility against remaining Prometheus operatives. The broadcast had exactly the effect Kellen had hoped for, exposing the conspiracy and forcing a reckoning within Earth's provisional government. Representatives from Mars arrived within a week, initiating new peace talks based on the truth rather than manufactured hostility. The process would be long and difficult, but for the first time since the war, there was genuine hope for reconciliation. Jace found himself unexpectedly central to these developments. As one of Captain Kellen's former soldiers, his testimony carried weight with the military factions still hesitant to accept the new reality. More importantly, his actions in helping Alara and Luma had earned the trust of the Proxima delegation. 10 days after the broadcast, he stood with Luma on an observation platform, overlooking what remained of the city. The perpetual ashen clouds had parted slightly, allowing weak sunlight to penetrate to the surface. In the distance, Proxima atmospheric processors had begun the monumental task of cleansing the air, their blue energy fields visible on the horizon. "Will the sky ever be blue again?" Luma asked, shielding her eyes as she gazed upward. "Yes," Jace replied with newfound certainty. "Not tomorrow, and not next month, but someday." "Mama says you're going to stay with us," the girl said, changing subjects with the abruptness typical of children. "Is that true?" Jace had indeed made that promise to Alara as she recovered. The realization that Luma was effectively his commanding officer's daughter had awakened a sense of duty in him, a commitment to ensure that Kellen's legacy lived on in her. But it was more than duty now. These past days had reminded him what it meant to be part of something, to fight for a future, rather than merely scraping by in the present. "Yes," he confirmed, "if that's okay with you." Luma considered this seriously, then nodded. "You're good at finding paths through scary places. We might need that again." Jace smiled, his first genuine smile in longer than he could remember. "I hope we won't. But if we do, we'll face it together." Below them, a joint team of human and Proxima scientists emerged from the research center, heading toward the newly established decontamination station. Among them was Alara, still using a crutch but recovering well under alien medical care. She looked up, spotted them on the platform, and waved. Luma waved back enthusiastically, then grabbed Jace's hand to make him wave too. In that simple gesture, the small hand trustingly enclosed in his own, Jace felt the weight of years of isolation begin to lift. The world remained broken, the challenges ahead immense, but for the first time since the war, he allowed himself to feel something he had thought lost forever: hope. As the weak sunlight broke through another gap in the clouds, casting a golden spotlight on the rubble below, Jace saw not just destruction, but possibility. From these ruins, something new would emerge, not a return to what was lost, but perhaps something better. A world built on truth rather than deception, on cooperation rather than fear. And he would be part of building it, one day at a time, alongside this remarkable child whose tiny voice had called him back from the brink of losing his humanity. "Come on," he said to Luma, gently tugging her hand. "Let's go meet your mother." Together, they descended from the platform, walking toward the future that awaited them all.